Welcome back, everyone. It's been a while. Let me get you caught up as to why. The good news is, with Jim's guidance, my dad, me, and Jessica got both of our Formula Vs up and running, which was a tremendous relief because it allowed me to start focusing on getting one of the spec racers I still have left over from being a CSR ready to go. And why were we getting it ready to go? Well, Jessica has a lot of experience driving, and she obviously had a lot of experience with SCCA Solo. But she didn't have a lot of experience road racing, so we decided to head on out to the SCCA driver school for the San Francisco region at Thunderhill Raceway Park. She learned a lot, she had a great time, and of course, like a natural, she graduated. Now we're actually going to get ready to go to the first regional race here in about a week. We also began to work on the less pretty Formula V she had from Chuck and Inga. It needed a lot of TLC, as the one that she won her championship with was probably race ready besides the fuel bladder and some little knickknacks. But Chuck's car, we really took a lot of time in trying to clean it up, pretty it up, painted a lot of the pieces, painted the exhaust, did all sorts of tidying up, and of course we're going to end up rewiring the car as well. Now we've got parts on the way that haven't showed up yet. New brake master cylinders, new brake wheel cylinders. We've got new fuel pump, carburetor rebuild kits, new points, new condensers, all the things, right? But they're not here yet, so we're doing what we can with the time we've got, and rewiring and repainting and making things look pretty was on the top of our list. But there's a big project for me to start working on. So I know a lot of you already think I'm a lucky guy because I've got my store WF1. And if you think I'm a lucky guy with that, you're going to want to kill me because of this. This is my very first car. Now, what made that possible was clearly my dad. My dad is an excellent engineer, but he predominantly put himself through college restoring third-generation Corvettes. So much so that, unfortunately, my Uncle Brian is no longer with us. But my entire life, he had the very first known to exist C3 Corvette in existence. It was chassis number 3. Obviously, he passed on, the car was sold, and it's actually kind of a cool story. There's a gentleman in the United States who, now owns my uncle's car, which is the very first known C3 or third generation Corvette to exist. Even though it's not the split window 63, it's a convertible 63. But this guy also happens to own the last 1967 Corvette produced. So basically, he has the bookenders for all of third generation Corvettes. That's pretty cool. Now, done talking about my dad and my uncle and how they're just absolute badasses at Corvettes. I, for the longest time, fell in love with a 69 Camaro. I always talk to my parents, I love 69 Camaros, I want a 69 Camaro, yada, 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 right? Thankfully, they listened. My mom obviously knew what my dad was capable of, greenlit shopping for this. I had no idea this was happening, by the way. My mom and my dad put a wanted ad in the paper. Story is, somebody got in touch with them. The car was roughly, I want to say, oh man, if I drove to where I think they picked this car up, it was less than a 20-minute drive. They bought it for $1,500. Now, of course, it wasn't a spectacular Camaro. It was your standard base model. The only thing it had to its name was it was a console car. Blue, red interior, crummy 307 V8, automatic turbo 350, one-legged, 10-bolt, drum brakes all around. Not that glorious. Most of middle school into high school spent doing a restoration on this. She went from being your base model to being a Z28 clone. We put a proper small block in there. We put a manual conversion in there. We did the disc brakes. We eventually did, it's not the 12 bolt, but it's an older generation 10 bolt. That's the same size ring and pinion as the 12 bolts, and it's posi. Yeah, she's a great car. Why she's like this? Well, I got into an accident, and the accident was not covered on insurance. We tried to get it fixed, and for whatever reason, problem happened. Tried to get fixed, problem happened. And then I started like saying, well, if I'm gonna do this, I might as well do it right. So I started disassembling, project stalled, disassembling, project stalled, and now I'm just kind of at the point, well, just gotta do it all. Now this is sad to admit, but for a little while there, I honestly thought we could save her. We really were hoping that we could get away with cleaning out all the fecal matter left over from the rats and the squirrels, but alas, it just proved to be too much. Now normally, these two little clips, this isn't the big deal, but no matter how many times I just pulled something out, I would find a mountain of feces. And moreover, the bigger issue is they actually decide to start eating the wiring. Once they get to the point where they're eating the wiring and eating the actual interior out of the seats, they're making nests underneath the dash. Well, about the point I had to pull the seats out and realize that no matter what, they had gotten into everything. That's when we decided to go all the way down to nothing. Now, to get down to nothing, everything needs to go, including your standard little door panels, which were probably the easiest part of this process. Thankfully, I already had the other two off the car, so that was a pretty easy fix. Now, for those of you that don't know, we didn't used to have airbags, so most of our dashes were rubber, so that obviously came out along with the dash cluster. From there, all the wiring came out of the car. We had to pull the parking brake system, had to pull the remaining wires left over from the dash camera, drop the speakers, pull out the quarter window trim. This sucks. And no matter what, I just couldn't vacuum enough. Every time I took something off, I found more feces. Every time we took a panel off, feces. Every time we went away from the car for the night and came back, they'd try to move back in and they'd poop some more. I pressure washed the living daylights out of the car and then finally began the full disassembly process. Now, one of the cool things I ended up doing was getting a buttload of Ziploc bags, Sharpies, so I can basically label where parts are coming from and where the hardware goes. If you don't do that, you're going to end up lost because so much of this hardware was new to me. Even though we restored this car when I was a kid, we didn't do a complete down to nothing disassembly. We did a really outstanding job with the restoration, but it wasn't a soup to nuts like we're doing here. So plastic bags, totes, all that really helped us make sure that the hardware is going to go back where it's supposed to. Considering this was the first time I pulled the steering column out of the car and my brake pedal assembly. Never had those things out. Now, anybody that's worked on cars, or any car of that matter, working on the internals of the doors and the window regulators is the least favorite thing. So I made sure I paid extra attention to how I pulled those parts out, to where the hardware went, to how and where the window regulator runners went, where the window regulator was bolted to, because these things have infinite levels of adjustment, and if you don't get it right, the window's just not going to work well. And needless to say, I'm surprised my windows worked as well as they did, because they've been in there for the better part of 50 years. So with windows, window parts, window regulators, one of the other things is they're covered in grease. So the parts that were covered in grease, those got put in a trash bag, labeled as the side they were, and then thrown into the tote. Now, what you didn't see is the fact that I'm throwing those Ziploc bags with all the fasteners and how I call them out into the tote as well. Then I put the tote aside, and then I get to work on another portion of the car. This being my little quarter windows, and boy, I thought the doors were hard. These turned out to be absolute pains in the butt. The other thing that complicated it was obviously the fact that the other side was hit, so that one took an incredible amount more time. Now, the window trim that goes on the top here, you've obviously got to pull that out. What's fascinating to me is how wonderfully gooey the tar was that was underneath it still. So that was actually a pretty unique thing. Is 20 years on, still really good tar. But here's a perfect example, like my ashtray. That's never been out of the car. One of the other unique things is we have these little brackets that hold in all of the chrome trim on the front and rear windows. So those all had to come out, and we had to make sure we didn't break the tangs that they hold on to. One of the only things left standing in the entire car was the headliner. The rats or the squirrels didn't move into it, didn't eat it, but regardless, it's got to come out. Now, what's cool is how these little headliners work. They're just held up with stay rods. That's really easy to just cut it off of it for now. We got those stay rods out later. And this was the moment where I realized I'm really happy I'm taking it all the way down. There was a lot more corrosion underneath the rear window, underneath the roof, underneath the floorboards. So getting this thing sandblasted, getting it to the point where it's all protected from corrosion, it's just going to ensure that I have the car forever. Now, finally got the deck lid off. Also had to pull out the gas tank. Had to pull out the differential, which meant lowering the leaf springs, then resetting the car and taking the wheels off. And then from there, I was able to drag the differential out the side of the car. Left that intact so I can deal with that another day. And then finally got the chrome trim off of the driver A-pillar and over the top. So I'm a lucky guy, and sometimes working with my dad is a lot of fun. He and I both engineered a pretty efficient way to transport the back shell of my car. What we're doing is we're picking up 2 existing bolt holes in the front for the subframe. Basically, we've got standoffs that are going to grab the rearmost pickup points for that. If the rear end traveled fully, it was going to hit some rubber brackets or rubber bumpers. We pulled those brackets out, but we're reusing the holes there, and those are going to allow us to bolt the rear end to this frame. And it actually worked out pretty good. We're really happy with how it works. It's going to make sure that we can get to and from the sandblasters, to and from the body shops, all of it, and it actually rolls remarkably well. So that's all we got for this video, just showing you how I ended up tearing down my 1969 Camaro. Now it's a bare rear chassis with, you know, stripped doors, stripped trunk lids, stripped fenders, stripped front valence, stripped lower valence. Everything's just bare metal. So now all those pieces are over getting sandblasted, and when they're done sandblasting, they're going to epoxy coat and epoxy primer the car. Then we're going to get it back, and then we're going to make next steps. But while we're waiting for all of that to happen, we're going to load this little Spec Racer Ford up, take this out to Thunderhill Raceway Park, and put Jessica in it so she can do her first regional race with the SCCA. So that's really exciting. That's going to be happening this weekend. We'll get you some information on how well that goes here in a little next video. And then we also have to get you caught up with what we need to do to get my store ready to race in the majors races I need to run to qualify to go back to the SCCA National Runoffs at Road America. In the meantime, thank you all for watching. If you can, hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button greatly helps things. If you could do that for me, that would be great. We'll see you all in the next video.